Hello, BookTube. I have a strange video to make today. It's a kind of video that I don't usually make, and the only reason that I'm doing it is because it's been sticking in my mind, and I want to talk about it, and you're the people that I talk about BookTube things with. But the preface is that I watch the news. I do a lot of watching YouTube that isn't BookTube, and I watch a lot of channels involving, for instance, UK news. I started with Brexit. I became so interested with the phenomenon of Brexit that I started watching all sorts of different commentaries, official channels, news channels, but also commentary channels that aren't official, that offer counter commentary. And I was watching all summer and in the autumn news from London, news from England about austerity measures and the fallout to an economic crisis that was really going to have a crunch down the line. The numbers that were being projected at the time by all sorts of media looked absolutely horrifying, and I literally falling off a cliff. And I looked at those numbers and I listened to the BBC people and whatnot talking about them, and then we move on to the next story. And every time that I heard that, I wanted to say, Wade, you're talking about thousands and thousands of people not being able to feed themselves, not being able to heat their houses. How can you move on to a different story? You're talking about the end of a huge chunk of your own society, and you're moving on to, somebody's funny cheese carving and whatnot. And that kept happening, no matter how dire the warnings were. I saw a lot of those warnings on a YouTube channel called Novara Media. A bunch of really smart young people. I used to love their channel so much. Then Russia invaded Ukraine, the sovereign state of Ukraine, and they couldn't bring themselves to condemn Russia. They uttered really room temperature platitudes about how, we were not condoning violence at all, but it was totally clear that because Russia has a dictatorship that is not an explicit capitalist system that they all pretend to hate, they can't hate it. So they ended up doing a whole bunch of softcore simping for Vladimir Putin, and it was revolting. It was revolting to see while Ukrainian citizens were arming themselves with rakes and forks, and that these kids in front of their cameras, having never undergone any kind of hardship in their life, were suddenly simping for a Russian dictator. Well, NATO's been pretty bad. Well, NATO, he invaded another country. The line here about which side to fall on is pretty simple. They wouldn't do it. They absolutely wouldn't do it. And I stopped watching at that point, even though they'd been doing a lot of good reporting on the economic crisis that is on my mind for this video. I stopped watching for a while, and I sort of drifted back into their orbit, and then the Queen died. And they could barely restrain their personal glee, not in terms of government, not in terms of policy, not anything like that, not in terms of the royals. The Queen had no political power. As Ben Pimlott pointed out in his biography of her, if Parliament handed her a bill for her own execution, she would have to sign it. No, it's just that they were glad this old woman was dead. And that sort of did it for me, but that's for them. But I still watched a lot of commentary, as commentators just sort of said, yeah, when winter gets here, when these measures take full effect, it's going to be nothing less than devastating. And then they just moved on to some other story. And I guess the uncomfortable admission here is that I sort of moved on too. I thought, if you're pocketing this away in the B block and it's not screaming front and center on every episode, maybe the problem isn't as bad as I thought. But I have a lot of friends in the UK, and the problem is really bad. It is really, really bad. It is once in a generation bad. But even then, it didn't really have a face for me until I saw a video the other day. It's been on my mind. I didn't do a video about it right away, but it's been sticking with me. It was a video by Kieran at KD Books. I just recently was riffing on him, having a great time. We have great fun on BookTube. In the BookTube world, we have great fun playing back and forth on each other. He is indulged in the Has Steve Read It Season 1 and Season 2, I think. And I have a great deal of fun talking about his videos and sort of deadpanning if I don't agree with one of his estimations of a book or whatnot. It's a fun channel that he does. But he did a video about a week ago that wasn't fun. And it grated against his whole personality. This is a fairly upbeat guy, a fairly optimistic guy. And he did a video that I can only describe as in shock. He seemed in shock the whole time. Because I get the impression that he has gradually become aware of the fact that these economic strictures, these economic stories that news programs 4 months ago were blowing right past, are going to hit him square on, just a bullseye. He's not in the upper 1%. They're going to hit him square on, him and his family. And you see a video, I'll leave a link to it down below if you haven't watched it. You really should. It's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen on YouTube. Because this is someone he's not asking for pity. He's not asking for even sympathy. He's mainly turning on the camera and just saying, this seems unbelievable to me. I work. We are a normal family. I shouldn't be at a point where I'm saying, well, what will I make the kids for lunch? And there literally isn't anything in the house. And not only isn't there anything in the house, but I can't afford anything. This shouldn't be true. This is, suddenly it seems like this has become true, and it's dystopian. It's an amazing video. It's arresting. Also, oftentimes it's heartbreaking, because you can see that he is so stunned by what's going on that occasionally he just bursts into laughter, but it's not ultimately a happy laughter. It's just that this is a responsible, level-headed, I think, by nature, happy guy being forced to confront the fact that he and his family are on the brink of doom. Not to be overly melodramatic about it, but if there's absolutely no money, what other word would you use? The reality of it, in other words, I am sure, he says in his video, I can't be the only one, and he's not the only one. I know that for a fact. The reality of it is coming home to tens of thousands of people. But it feels different when it's somebody that's in your own community. I know that shouldn't be true, but it does. It feels different when it's someone in your own community. I've watched Katie Books, the channel, BookTube channel, Katie Books, for a long time, and really enjoyed it all the time. I'm sure a lot of you have too. Now, there was a thing going on in his video, and I'm pleased to say that it has only continued. Some of you will know that in the new format of BookTube, there is a little sigil at the bottom of a control panel. I don't think I've ever seen it on one of my own videos. It's a little symbol with a $sign in it, so you can tip someone right there. Not a question of going to their PayPal or their Patreon. You can just tip them right there for the video. And in response to his video, although this is not what he was asking people to do, he was merely expressing his astonishment, I think. He just needed to talk about it. And if you're a husband and a father, you probably don't want to talk all that much about it. It would frighten your children to realize the horrible realities that are involved here. I think he turned on his camera and just talked. And that's good. It's got to be good for you to do. It's got to be healthy to do. We're all friends here. And I noticed in response to his video that a lot of people just started hitting that tip function and tipping him some money. If anything will help, and if you listen to his video, and if you listen to any other testimonies that people in the UK have been saying to the press, anything helps. Anything does. When you're at a point where you've got virtually nothing, at a point when you're looking around saying, there's nothing, and all the money that I just got paid is spent for the bare essentials of how to stay alive, it's all gone. On the doorstep of Christmas. I noticed in response in his video that a lot of people were doing that. They were leaving comments, which we're great at doing here in this corner of BookTube. We've got each other's backs most of the time. There were a lot of comments saying, you're not alone, you're not the only one, I feel for you. But a lot of people were also giving. And a lot of people were also mentioning that if they didn't want to give publicly, because if you tip with that function, it shows the amount you give next to your name. A lot of people like their charity or their good graces, their good gesture, or their generosity to be private. There's a lot of people going, I imagine, to the PayPal as well, which is linked on his channel, just to help out. Plain and simple, just to help out. You have vividly described in this video, almost involuntarily, it must have been a hard video to make. I can't imagine how hard it must have been to make. You've described what it's like, and I'm not rolling in riches. These people, I imagine, were saying to themselves, I'm not rolling in riches, but I'm not at that point yet. If I've got, $20 that I was going to spend on some frippery, I can give it to you instead if it's going to make a difference. It will make a difference. And I just wanted to, I guess the horrible 21st century term is signal boost. I just wanted to bring that video to your attention. I'm not telling you to give anything. You may be in tough financial situation yourself. The United States is poised on the brink of a full-blown recession. It might be that you have nothing extra. to give at all, except your good wishes. I'm sure that Kieran will like your good wishes. I'm sure that that will buoy him. But I want to let you know about the video. Whether you can give or not, the bald reality that it reflects in the world of the UK right now, it's not an isolated instance at all, is going to be eye-opening for you. It's going to be a lot more eye-opening than those anodyne news programs that I was watching. A lot more. This is the human face of those policies. And if you're watching and you feel inclined to give, I want you to know that the opportunity is out there. I want you to know that the video exists, so that if you want to do that, you can. I think it'll be pretty clear when you watch the video that anything you give will go a long way. The only horrifying thing is that, as Kieran mentions, and everybody in his comments mentioned, and I know, and you probably know as well, he's not the only one. Good Lord. But we're all here. He has at least a support system. So I wanted to let you know that video's out there. Sorry for the weird, I never do this sort of thing, but I couldn't keep it to myself any more than I think he could. I think he had to make that video, and I had to make this response. So I will leave a link to his video down below. Watch it and react as you see fit. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up before I go on any longer, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.